Hello everybody, it is I, Eternal Flame here, and today I'm here to do a little bit of a JJK discussion, mainly because this is a question that I have seen going around the community for a while now, and most people have a different answer to it, so I find this to be a really interesting discussion, which this discussion is the entire question on if since Sukuna is reincarnated into his true form, does he still have access to 10 shadows or not? And the more important question, in my opinion, on if Sukuna does have access to the 10 shadows, can it play a role into this battle more than what it did against Gojo, or is it basically just going to be something that Sukuna has access to, but because the Shikigami are all so weak that they can't actually be utilized and they don't really have any purpose? Well, today I'm here to talk about both of those subjects and more and the potential of that. So without further ado, let's get straight into this video. So up first, which is going to be the most important subject of them all, can Sukuna still use the 10 shadows at all? Mainly because we have to answer this question before we talk about literally anything else in this video, because this decides whether anything else is actually being worth talked about or not in this respective video. And in my opinion, I actually do think the answer is yes, Sukuna is still likely able to use the 10 shadows. Now, I'm actually going to talk about one of the reasons why people don't believe Sukuna can use 10 shadows and how I actually believe that leads into more so proving that Sukuna can still use the 10 shadows. Where the most common reason I have seen for why Sukuna can't use the 10 shadows from people is mainly because of the fact that Sukuna is now in his true form and in his true body. He isn't in Megami's body anymore, he is in his own true form, so 10 shadows should be gone with Megami's body, so we shouldn't be able to access it. Mainly because Sukuna incarnated into his original body, but in my opinion, I don't just believe that's completely wrong, but I believe that is actually kind of the opposite, and it more so proves the fact that Sukuna can still use 10 shadows. The reason why I believe that is purely because of the fact that if that was how it functions, if it functioned that Sukuna needs to be in his original body in order to use his curse technique, or any other incarnated sorcerer needed to be in their original form and original body to use their own curse technique, then shouldn't Sukuna not be able to use Cleave and Dismantle while in Megami's form and only be able to use 10 shadows? Because it's still Megami's brain. He doesn't have access to his own brain. He doesn't have access to his true form. He has access to Megami's form. So in my opinion, Sukuna having his current body back instead of Megami's body at the current moment just proves more likely that Sukuna does have access to 10 shadows, and more than likely curse techniques are etched a lot more onto the brain, but also onto the soul itself, which is also very, very likely considering we know that you are able to alter the shape of the soul in order to awaken a curse technique. The reason why we know this is because several of the awakened players were just people who had their brains altered via altering the shape of their souls in order to change the shape of their brains into that of sorcerers. We know it's possible through changing the shape of your soul in order to awaken a curse technique, which means that curse techniques are more than likely directly linked to the soul as well as the body rather than just the body. So in my opinion, if anything, that actually just proves it more than likely that Sukuna is able to utilize the 10 shadows technique alongside his own technique. Well, you'd have to pick using either Cleave and Dismantle or 10 shadows, because we know you can't use several techniques at the same time, unless you have one technique imbued into the domain while you're yourself using another technique, as Sukuna displayed against Gojo, which is why Sukuna himself is able to use 10 shadows while the domain expansion used Cleave and Dismantle, but that's the only way of using two curse techniques at the same exact time. But yeah, basically if JJK functioned like that, where in order to be able to use a curse technique you must have the original body of it, not rather than just being incarnated, then Sukuna would never be able to use Cleave and Dismantle, and he'd only be stuck with the curse technique of his body because they don't have his original brain. Granted, there is a chance that cursed items could actually just work straight up differently, but at the same time, I don't really think they would work differently. I don't see any reason why they would work differently, because they just allow the soul to continue living, and there's not really a brain for them anymore to begin with, but at the same time I could see an argument for it, but I don't think there is an argument for it. Which is why, in my opinion, I do believe that Sukuna still has access to the 10 shadows. And the other common debunk about why Sukuna has access to 10 shadows is mainly people just wondering, if Sukuna does have access to 10 shadows, then why hasn't he used the 10 shadows yet? And there's one explanation that I have that I know some people are probably not going to like, but it's something that I think people need to constantly remember when they are talking about Sukuna, and that is Sukuna's mentality in the current moment. Sukuna is fighting to win, yes, but more so, he doesn't have any rush to win. Sukuna is legitimately just doing all of this to have fun. That is currently the way that Sukuna is fighting, to have fun and enjoy himself. So if he doesn't see the need to fight optimally by using 10 shadows to assist him, then he's not going to fight with 10 shadows to assist him. Of course, that's one of the explanations. However, there is another way to explain it other than just Sukuna's mentality, and that Sukuna wants to have fun, so he's choosing not to use 10 shadows. Even though there are some opportunities where he could have used 10 shadows, he's just choosing not to use 10 shadows. Because there is actually another explanation for why Sukuna isn't using 10 shadows right now. And that is a pretty simple explanation. Most of Sukuna's good combat-based Shikigami at this point are dead, and they were killed off by Gojo, which is another impact that Gojo had on this battle. Because not just is Mahoraga dead, who Mahoraga would have been a nightmare to fight against, Nue is also dead, who most people don't have a flying counter, so Nue being on the battlefield just spamming lightning bolts would be a pain for everybody. We also know Divine Dog is dead, which Divine Dog is an incredibly powerful thing, especially if it were amped by Sukuna's curse energy. And then there's also Madoka Deer that was taken out, which I think is also the second most impactful thing that Gojo did, right behind taking out Mahoraga, mainly because of the fact that if he still had Madoka Deer around, then Sukuna would be having these full heals without needing to rely on his own curse energy output. There's also the possibility that Gojo taking out Rabbit Escape with that red he fired when Sukuna was hiding himself among the rabbits as well, so Sukuna doesn't really have that many good combat Shikigami left. Like, he has Piercing Ox, but at the same time, Piercing Ox is way too basic and simple to be utilized in this battle, because for people who do not remember how Piercing Ox works, Piercing Ox has to run in a straight line in order to build up power. A lot of people just can full counter that pretty easily. And also, this is going to be pure speculation, but from what we can tell, Myriad Elephant is incredibly heavy and is likely unable to move by itself, mainly because we've never actually seen Myriad Elephant do anything mobile, so I don't think that will be too helpful in this respective battle. Like, every time we've seen Myriad Elephant be used, he's either been used to crush someone or launch out a wave of water and then immediately disappear after. So even if 10 Shadows can be used, and I think it is likely that 10 Shadows still can be used, there's actually no point currently for Sukuna to use it, mainly because the two other Shikigami that Sukuna does have access to are either immobile Shikigami or really predictable Shikigami. There's also the Toads, but the Toads we know are not that strong, so yeah. And while Sukuna could go to the shadows to try and hide away to recover, but that's not really a Sukuna type thing to do. After all, if Sukuna did want to try and recover, he would literally just leave the battlefield. I'm not gonna lie. Like, there is legitimately nothing keeping him there. He could leave at any point he wanted to, but he chose not to. So there's no way he's going to move over to the 10 shadows to hide for a little bit to heal. So how can it prove useful for this fight? What can it do? And there's one thing that I do think that it's actually capable of doing right now, and that is to do with totality. If you've been on the channel for a while, you know that I absolutely love how totality functions. It's one of the strongest things in JJK and most underrated things in my opinion, where the way that totality works is by after a Shikigami being killed, its powers and traits are passed down to the other Shikigami in order to form a much stronger Shikigami. For example, the curse Agito, which Agito also proves something funnily enough as well, which it proves that totality traits can also be passed down, mainly because of the fact that Agito is actually two totalities combined into one, where they have the Nue plus Orochi totality as well as the two Wolves totality into one massive Shikigami, with Madoka Deer being passed down as well, which means the traits are never really gone forever. So I think that it's possible that Sukuna might end up forcing totality between some of the Shikigami, since we know for a fact that Mahoraga as well as Agito are dead. He might end up passing those traits down to one of the other Shikigami that he has access to, maybe the Toad, maybe the Elephant, maybe Piercing Ox, we have no idea. He might end up passing those traits down and forcing a totality to come. In a similar way to how we fought against Gojo, where he forced Agito to be made, because normally totalities do take quite a bit of time. However, Sukuna was able to force it and force the creation of Agito, which proves Sukuna is already good enough with 10 Shadows that he might be able to force it. Furthermore, this would be the perfect way for him to actually get out of the situation that Yuta Okkotsu has currently put him in. The main reason why I say that is mainly because of something else that should be noted. Sukuna currently is somewhat low on curse energy. Well, he's at Yuta levels, but he is still low on curse energy because that's low for him. He is missing 2 of his arms, so he can't make the hand signs for the world dismantle. But at the same time, he does have one thing left, which is the potential possibility of making a totality Shikigami that is already adapted to Unlimited Void. After all, remember something that was revealed to us in 229 and 230, which is the fact that Sukuna had already adapted Mahoraga to Unlimited Void. Which means if these traits of adaptation end up passing down to other Shikigami, it could create one incredibly strong Shikigami for them to utilize in battle that already has the capability of bypassing Unlimited Void, because that was how Sukuna was able to break out of it the first time. Well, not the first time, but that was how Sukuna was able to break out of it the final time. That also asks the question on if Mahoraga's adaptations end up passing down, and if we're going to be completely honest, we don't really know that yet, mainly because Mahoraga is in completely new territory, mainly because of the fact that Sukuna is the first person to ever tame Mahoraga in history. Sure, we know what unadapted and untamed Mahoraga is like, but we do not know what a tamed Mahoraga is like and what the traits of a tamed Mahoraga is. For example, we know what the traits of a tamed Mahoraga now is that Sukuna is able to manifest the wheel separately, but that was something we had no idea on how to know about until that fight actually happened. So it could be very possible that Mahoraga's adaptations end up passing down once tamed. For example, this Mahoraga might have access to the World Slash itself as well as the immunity to Unlimited Void, which would be significantly more difficult for the cast to deal with. However, would this be a game over for everyone? And in my opinion, I don't actually think this would be a game over for everybody, mainly because of something else that is a disadvantage of using Mahoraga, or might actually end up proving a disadvantage of using Mahoraga, which in using Mahoraga might end up waking Megami up more and more because of you waking up the 10 shadows, basically doing a similar thing to what Yuji's been punching him with in order to wake up Megami more and more, and that could end up weakening Sukuna's output. The reason why I think that's going to be included is mainly because I don't think Gege is going to give just Sukuna this free massive power-up of a Mahoraga that can use the World Slash with seemingly no limitations. Well, not even a Mahoraga totality, so that should be even stronger than Mahoraga himself, especially with how everything has been looking into the battlefield, and that is something I could see being possible for how 10 Shadows can end up playing into the battle. Now, I'm not entirely sure if 10 Shadows is going to end up playing into the battle or not, however, I do think that it could be possible that it does, and this is one route that Gege could potentially end up taking. There is another route, though, that this could end up being a vessel for Megami, because a while back I did see a theory that a 10 Shadows totality might end up being the vessel for Megami, and that's how he ends up getting back into the fight, but at the same time, I don't think that's possible. It could also be possible that they could use this to directly reach Megami as well in order to talk to him. There are a lot of ways that 10 Shadows can be used in this fight, but I don't think that people should count it out as an impossibility yet, mainly because there's nothing that confirms it yet, and it should always be remembered, until something is confirmed with Sukuna, you should always keep it in mind as a possibility, because Gege ends up pulling up a lot of things for Sukuna, because we don't actually know that much about him. However, that's just my opinion on whether Sukuna can use the 10 Shadows still or not, and I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section down below, or if Sukuna is going to use the 10 Shadows, how he might end up using it. Do you think that this totality could be happening? Do you think he's going to need to use a Binding Vow in order to force a totality and lose something massive like the World Slash? I don't know. I'm really curious to what you guys think in the comment section down below, so I'm going to see y'all later. Peace out, have a good day.